Hello guys, this is Praise the Dark here, and today I want to talk about the Ring City DLC, and more specifically the location that it takes place in. Now before I say anything, the theory that I'm about to discuss was not discovered by me, but was told to me by one of the commenters on my previous video, so I took that information and decided to do my research on it, and the evidence I found for it is pretty compelling. The theory that was brought to me recently stated that the DLC is going to take place in New Londo, or at least the area at which it used to be in. The whole basis of this theory comes from the fact that the Sword of Avowal, which is a symbol found ubiquitously throughout the Ring City, like on top of buildings, all over the place, literally. It looks a lot like the Key to the Seal from Dark Souls. I mean, there's a pretty large resemblance between the two, so I can definitely see why there would be a theory to come up about this. And despite this being the only true evidence connecting New Londo to the Ring City, there's a pretty large amount of information to be speculated on. Now, first of all, New Londo was an extremely important area, not only to the lore of the game itself, but for the land of Lordran. The Abyss is found here, where you fight the Four Kings, and can literally be jumped into. And as we know, the DLC marks the end of the Souls series, and I speculate that we're going to find the Dark Soul, so I think we might have to enter the Abyss, and the only way of doing this may be to go to its first location, which is in New Londo. Now, that's all just theory, so take that with a grain of salt. And on top of that, New Londo sounds a hell of a lot like Londor, which is most likely an area where we will be visiting in the DLC. However, there's a pretty large amount of evidence that we know discourages this whole theory, being the fact that Earthen Peak is a location we will visit. And Earthen Peak is an area from Dark Souls 2 located somewhere around the kingdom of Drangleic, and we know that Drangleic is somewhere pretty far away from Lordran, which is where New Londo is. And if you didn't know that, here is a Reddit page that I'm going to link you guys to in the description, where you can read all about the information that further discusses that Drangleic is not in the same location as Lordran. There's further proof in this from the fact that Dark Souls 3 is literally in the base game of Lordran. I mean, Anor Londo is an area you visit right off of Irithyll, so there's pretty much no landmark within Dark Souls 2 that links its land to Dark Souls 1. That being said, the theory of New Londo is still possible. I mean, there would have to be some sort of teleportation mechanic or something of that nature, but it definitely can't be disproven yet. But on another note, I did also come up with a theory myself regarding a possible DLC boss. I found myself looking through this list again, and I saw these two boss souls, and I know that there's a connection between the Soul of a Great Bat to the DLC because there's the Demon Prince and all, but the Soul of a Wicked Spirit also has a pretty good connection there, and I want to discuss that. It states that it is a soul of a malevolent god that possessed a heroic king. Now, this got me thinking a bit about the story in Dark Souls 2, because I know that there's going to be some throwbacks to that game, such as the Desert Sorceress weapon, which is, let me find it, which is right here, and the entire area of Earthen Peak itself. I started thinking that this boss soul, if it were from the upcoming DLC, must have some important lore implications. Its description is pretty short, but it has a huge resemblance to a story that took place in Dark Souls 2. I have a link to it right here if you want to read it. It's the lore revolving around the Old Iron King. And despite the fact that he wasn't really considered a heroic king because he treated those marked as undead horribly, but those who were not branded with that name may have thought otherwise, his reign was also pretty prosperous in the beginning, following the discovery of the Scorched Iron Scepter and the creation of the Broom Tower. His demise only came when his body sunk below the earth along with his kingdom. He met one whose name must not be ever repeated, whose name is ineffable. This ancient soul of the being took hold of the Old Iron Kings, and thus formed the demonic creature you fight in the Iron Keep. This piece of lore sounds a whole lot like the one described in the item description right here. I feel as though this malevolent god was the being whose name should not be named, because it must be more important than just some random-ass evil spirit. Since this DLC connects Dark Souls 2 in multiple ways, I think that if this boss were to show up, it would be that spirit who took over the Old Iron King. But, of course, that's all speculation. I have no idea if this is going to actually be in the DLC, but it makes sense. I mean, there's going to be a lot of connections to Dark Souls 2, so this could definitely be a part of it. But that pretty much sums it up, guys. That's all the information I know thus far. Once again, I still haven't watched that video, so I want to thank you all once again for the amazing support you all have been giving me the last few weeks. I really, really appreciate it. I've been seeing comments all over the place, new subscribers all over the place, and it's the most growth I've ever had, ever. I mean, Social Blade told me that I have a plus 2,500% viewer base than I have ever. So that's really, really cool, guys. Thank you so much for watching. This is Praise the Dark, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.